Right, we're back. So, let's get going. A lot of animals have collected up on this space, and in order to get to it, I need to work my way through them. There we go. Shark studies. Oh good, you can build the CAD studio now. No problems at all. So weird how many cities need a railroad station. What's stopping you from building this? Requires steel wares. Requires railroad, coal, and either prime timber, bricks, or cement. Oh, Grand Central Station is now obsolete. Okay. Because, oh, and it removes the free boat. Oh, no. That explains it. Great. Lovely. Amazing. Ah, Silicon Valley will be done. Eventually. So. At the very least, by the time that's done, it will be finished. I can't be bothered to walk the long way around. Thank goodness those birds have all decided to move on. Okay. This tile absolutely needs a mine. There is nothing else to it. Okay, yeah, this is Mononesia. Need just to have another look in order to be sure of that. Coal is kinda too good to ignore, so... Yep. I'll lose a bit of food and some commerce, but I'll get a huge amount of more production. Do remember that even if +9 seems a bit small, that's base production. Unlike these votings that provide production, that stuff gets affected by the percentage multipliers. Which makes it very, very good. Anyway, I'm sure there's at least a couple buildings that can be built here. Yeah. Looks like this city has been busy building other stuff for a while. Oh well. There's plenty to do here. Like getting the new railway station actually in place instead of relying on a free copy that only lasted for so long. Okay, there's the animation studio. I need the design studio to build the CGI, so regardless. Oh, the hell's iron now? Okay, guess I'll get to building a mine there once I remember to head back. Yep. This is entertaining. Oops, that was the wrong button. The wrong option. I wanted to ensure that I would get it, not, yeah. At the very least I had workers right there, so it's not actually a problem to get it back. It's, well, not that big of a deal. Still mildly annoying, though. This was a mine. I distinctly remember this being a mine. Is there someone still going about with build infrastructure automation? Certainly hope not. Shouldn't be. I remember checking through everything. And I'm pretty certain I didn't miss all that much. Okay, does this city still need... not really anything major, but there is still quite a few buildings left. Still... yes, I need the design studio. The design studio isn't on the list of buildable buildings because I need modern offices. Probably should also get the modern waterworks and a couple of other things that can help. There's the modern offices. Okay. Waterworks, and yeah, of course, I don't have the arboretum or the community garden here, so definitely build those. Right. All good. Anyway, planetary exploration. Across the sea of space, the stars are other suns. With that, I can start building the interplanetary probe, so I can start getting mission rewards of the 8 other planets. No, 7 other planets. I should start doing that. Let's get those 3 probes set up. Yeah, the national units. The way they work is that a country can only build so many of a unit. And once they're done, well, they're done. There's nothing more that can be done there. Okay. I can mine here because I've checked every surrounding tile. They're all buildable, workable, etc. So they're all within city limits. Remove the bunker and start mining the ore. Okay, let's get the super duper supreme buildings out of the way. Okay, you need those modern offices to build certain things. Right, you need that, and the canoe builder. Ooh. Neat. Quite a few of these are very, very cheap to build. And, well, after that, eminently buildable. Yeah, the sheer quantity of production here is quite nice. Should have put some effort into other stuff. Pretty sure I just saw the Arboretum there, and that implies the community garden is somewhere around here. Guess I already built the community garden because I don't see it on the list. Yeah, it's not where I would normally look for it. Okay, that's actually quite good. Here comes the implications. Okay, what is the other thing I'm thinking of? Modern offices. There they are. Yeah, they're exactly for. I knew that swine were considered on that list. Okay, what to do with a tile? It's just sheep, so a tree farm is the best use of the tile itself when it comes to the outputs provided by it. Alright, maglev in order to get more money and... not enough money. science and food out of the tile. It's really commerce, which is its own thing. Yeah, even with that. Okay. Good. Yeah, I don't see any particularly amazing buildings, so I think it's time I've... Yeah, so I need to build the modern offices here, as well as the animation studio. Have I at least... No, I have not. Okay. There's the Arboretum. Wonder if I'll see the community garden. Yep, there it is. Right, the modern offices are here. And probably should build a modern waterworks as well, even if it's extremely expensive. Huh. As long as things move this quickly, I might be able to get Vortex through today. Oh, Maglev. Might as well go for the better one, if it's available. Yeah, I think I'd be better off building a core here, now that that marble has been revealed. Not really a reason to build those. Is there anything that I want to talk about? You know what? Let's talk rocket science. So, rocketry is not exactly as complicated as it is mimetically described. There is a level of complexity to it, but that complexity is actually quite simple when you think about it. The hard part about rocketry is the fact that fuel is weight. So the more fuel you stuff into a rocket, the heavier it becomes. So that means that at the very start, it is going to be very slow. A rocket can only move so quickly, after all. Right, I should put... Yeah, because this tile is actually within reach of Mata Utu. Same with this one, but that's a young forest. So it's a little less... vital to finish. But the tough part about rocket science is that, yeah, fuel has weight. You can only stuff so much fuel before the rocket can no longer lift itself. And that's not good. This is something you want to avoid if at all possible. For fairly obvious reasons. And you also get the weird result of, because this fuel has weight, the longer the rocket burns, the faster it accelerates. Because you have the same amount of force, assuming a steady burn, which, not having is generally a bad idea. But assuming a steady burn, that means that the rocket will propel itself more and more as time goes on. accelerating faster and faster. Of course, you can also, with modern liquid rockets, but you can control that, but I'll get to it. The oldest rockets are solid booster rockets. These use solid fuel. Which is relatively easy to deal with because you can just stuff it together, so long as you're careful with it. And it's, in most circumstances, the densest fuel. So you can save on tank size. Which, by the way, you have to carry the tank with you. Which increases weight further, which slows down the rocket. See, that's the rough part of rocket science. Anything you add makes the rocket less efficient. And anything you remove makes the rocket more efficient. Maybe. Because if you remove something important, then you will no longer fly today. And that's not a good thing with rocketry. Because again, the point is to get to space. And if you cannot manage to do so, well, then there's not much of a point to even trying. Okay, so what I'm missing are some of the additional buildings, like the modern offices. Okay, yeah, the Arboretum Community Garden already built here, so. But the oldest fuels are, as I said, solid rockets. Solid rocket fuel. I mean, like I said, it's easy to produce, easy to manage, so long as you're careful enough to deal with it, which is how you should deal with rocket fuel anyway. The reason why it's considered, any good rocket fuel burns ridiculously powerfully for its weight. Okay, so first let me check to see what can I get for each one of these. I can construct the Mariner program. Sure. Mercury would be the small one over here. Of course, the solid fuel has its own disadvantages, because of course it does. Solid fuel, yeah, like I said, it burns very strongly for its weight. So if you're not careful with it, the stuff tends to be explosive. This, for obvious reasons, is not a good thing. At least, well, it exploding isn't a good thing. It also tends to be liable to catch on fire easily, which is always a fun thing to deal with. At least when it's not burning when you want it to. It's great when it burns exactly where and when you want it to. That's never the problem. Of course, another issue is that, well, part of the thing about rockets is that they need to burn without oxygen. Yeah. After all, they have to work in space, and space doesn't have any air. And without air, well, that means that in order for something to combust, it needs to have oxygen mixed in. So, and the solid rocket fuel is solid, so it can't do any mixing or whatnot like liquid fuels can. So the oxygen is mixed in. So it will keep burning. And it will not stop burning until the tank is effectively depleted. Either fully or with maybe a few dregs left that didn't successfully burn, but that's unlikely. Rocket fuel is supposed to burn all the way through. And if it doesn't manage that, then it's not good rocket fuel. Okay, so what the city needs is probably... No? Okay, you've already got the good food in. Nice. Yeah, you need the modern offices. Let's get that so I can build the supercomputer. I'm gonna need the hospital at some point in the near future. I do want to build the gondola canals. Yeah, they're right there. But yeah, that's the biggest issue with solid rocket boosters. It will keep burning. You cannot control it. So it's really best used for leaving the ground. Trying to use it to maneuver tends to go poorly. And any attempts at stopping it from burning will leave you with an exploded tank. Probably. Because all that heat energy has to go somewhere. So again, solid rockets are best for takeoff. There's also liquid fuel. Liquid fuel tends to be a little less dense than solid fuel, and tends to be a bit more complex. After all, you need to find a way to light the stuff without oxygen. Otherwise, it will not work in space. So, what tends to happen is that you also end up with two tanks of fuel. Well, two tanks. One of fuel, and the other is liquid oxygen. And the fuel is of a kind that once it runs into oxygen of any kind, it will combust and start burning. If you design the system carefully, which has been done ages ago, we figured out ways to do that. The end result is quite thoroughly a strong burn. Yeah, okay, so this is needle. I don't know why this was... Oh, it must have been previously unknown and largely ignored. Outside of city reach, etc. The fun thing is because this setup, it's actually easy to control. You can reduce the amount of throttle by reducing the rate at which the fuel and the oxygen mix by throttling it. And because none of the hot stuff is already outside the tank, you can shut it off completely, and after a momentary continuation of the burn, because there's still stuff flowing out, though not much, what you ended up getting is it's stopping, which is essentially great. And almost certainly in the vein of what you want, if you want a controllable rocket. Which, yeah, a controllable rocket is a very good idea. Uncontrollable rocketry tends to be bad. Because, again, rockets. Those things are powerful and very, very dangerous. And you never want to deal with an uncontrollable rocket. Unless they're smaller and useful. I don't know. But generally speaking, you want to be able to control it to some extent.
The Earth is just too small and fragile a basket for the human race to keep all its eggs in.
Yep, I can now do the cislunar satellites. However, those are pretty much the two propulsion methods that we've thoroughly tested and use. There are two others that we are aware of but don't really use yet. Well, okay, there are maneuvering thrusters, which are a special case. They're kind of weak, though, and don't really count for rocketry. Very important, though. An, an uncontrollable rocket is one thing. A controllable rocket in which you have very little control over your direction is worse. Okay, obsoletes this. I think I may have built that. I don't even know. Oh, that's gonna be sad to lose. Perhaps I'll put it off and research something else. Cloning, get me more science. After that, maybe nanotechnology? That's not going to be that helpful, honestly. I mean, I do need it for a super string theory at some point. Biomaterials does sound fun, though. Oh, the biofuel power plant. That's one of the combined buildings. And there's also ethanol station. Oh, okay. That's research for now. Yeah. Ion propulsion is, well, it's not a rocket, that's for sure. Neither is solar propulsion, solar sails. Both of those are vacuum propulsion methods. In other words, they're means of movement within space that don't have all the limitations that space has. That, that our usual methods of propulsion have. However, they're also very weak and take advantage of the fact that there's no friction in space. So they cannot replace rockets, chemical rockets. Not when it comes to leaving the atmosphere. There we go, explore Mercury, and here's the mission data. I can always analyze it, which gets me 10,000 science. Yeah, that is less than 20% of my science output per turn. I mean, it's still a lot, but better can be done. Instead, I'm gonna just move you up here, and there. Marina program. Can we build from Mercury or Venus? Oh. Yeah, that would work. Anyway. Well, there's not much else to do with Mercury. For the time being. For the time being. Anyway, ion propulsion. What this is that you basically create a particle accelerator of charged ions, and then you launch the charged ions in the opposite direction that you want to travel in. Through this, you're able to achieve quite the speeds. For at least the ions that you're shooting out. And they are ions so that you can take advantage of electropropulsion. Particle accelerators work by using electrical fields in order to accelerate the particles to extremely high speeds. There are, of course, limits, namely the speed of light, on how fast you can make them, as well as, time and whatnot. But through these powerful fields, electromagnetic fields, you can get them moving very, very quickly. And the reaction from that, which is, well, Newton's third law, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. This provides a huge amount of, this provides an opposite force. Well, an opposite amount of acceleration. Sort of. Yeah, opposite amount of force is accurate. The end result is something that, well, because the ship is way heavier than the ion, is a rather weak push. But once you increase the amount of atoms flowing through, you will have a noticeable acceleration, and can, through that, control the movement of, well, the ship. I should not rebuild this anymore, these two dynamos, since they are to be replaced by the thing. By the biofuel plant. Okay, I'll come back to that later. Essentially, ion propulsion is surprisingly powerful and can get you quite far along. Especially since it is theoretically the most efficient use of a propellant. Launching things at near the speed of light behind you, you cannot use a reaction mass more efficiently. Which is actually part of the issue of space. The only way to, since there's nothing to grip onto, other than gravitational fields and maybe the residual amount of, mass in the area that's tiny compared to any spaceship of reasonable size. Actually, yeah, I should mine here. Jeez, 20 production? That's quite the amount. The other option, well, yeah, and ion propulsion is probably what I would say it's probably the most likely candidate for any uh, future solar system exploration, or at least it's going to be a major part of it. At least for anything that wants to head out, head either closer to the sun or head to somewhere and back. The other possibility of propulsion that we've been looking into is solar sails. These are nifty. Effectively, what these do is take advantage of what are called solar wind. What is called solar wind. This stuff is a huge mass of radiation that the sun throws out. It's not just electromagnetic. It's not just light in its various forms. It's also a bunch of charged particles. It's why the magnetic field is so important. Because without it, we'd be continuously hit by a very large amount of charged particles, which cause DNA damage and mutations. While this is important for evolutionary processes, we're used to the amount that we have that already hit the planet. So let's preferably not try to increase that. So it would be best we avoid doing anything that would damage the magnetic field. But getting back on track, the field, this solar wind can actually be used in order to get propulsion from the sun, which is quite nice. Because it's effectively like using sails on a sailing ship, on a wooden ship on Earth. It's free propulsion. Of course, the only issue is that because the source is the sun, obviously, solar sails are only useful for heading outwards. At least that's a direct propulsion method. Of course, you can do fun stuff like taking advantage of gravitational pull in order to move quickly away from the sun, and then slingshot around a planet and head back the other direction if you do it just right. But it's a finicky thing. It always is. But yeah, I would say it's not something we would probably use for as the sole propulsion method unless it's you know, a probe that's heading out either to the deep solar system, no, the outer solar system, or that we hope would leave the solar system entirely. That's a water resource. I mean, I'll get to properly handling the various things, but on the one hand, that is the only tile of mammoth that I know. On the other hand, that is the only tile that I know on this continent that can handle a farm. Yeah, I mean, this tile is permafrost. So, and there's sea lion and sea over there as well. So I don't need the wildlife sanctuary here, but I guess it's not that important. Of course, just like with solid rockets and liquid rockets, either version has its advantages and disadvantages, and we'll probably end up doing something similar to what we have with modern rocketry, which is using a mixture of both. Yeah, most stages in modern rockets, most stages use liquid fuel, and the boosters attached in order to help the rocket along during the early stages use solid fuel. I should also get a satellite set up. And maybe a lunar rover at some point. Okay. Right. So Venus is the also, so there's no point in going to Venus. Mars can build me the Mars Science Laboratory, which, yes, okay. The other option is mission to Mars, which requires asteroid belt probes. It's a human Mars mission, okay. Well, it's reasonable to head to Mars. It's the other closest thing. Yeah, I figure we'll do the cloning technology and then call it for the session. Even if it leads to an abnormally short session that's less than an hour long, I'm sure it's fine. Oh, this is one of the newer cities. Yeah, it's Hattusas. Well, not really newer. It's actually one of the oldest cities in the world, but... Details, details, details. They don't really matter. The farm supply should go first, though. That foundry is... The foundry is more ridiculously powerful than the farm supply. That is... impressive. I think I'll build the levy after that and then go do these. Yeah, anything more might need to wait. But yeah, you know what? Let's go for a quick tour. So, this is the space map. Actually, it might be better to do it from here. No, not really. Okay. This is the moon, stretching out quite a distance. Up here we have the inner solar system, including the sun. It is very impassable. Here's Mercury, Venus, which looks a bit different from what you might expect because this is actually the ground. The atmosphere is thick and impenetrable, at least when it comes to visual light. And here is Mars. And these are some peaks. Mars has the largest mountains in the solar system. So this part is the outer solar system. Here are Jupiter and the largest moons. Callisto. Io. Yeah, that's a lava ocean. Europa. And Ganymede. Along with some small moons and, well, this is the asteroid belt. These asteroid surfaces represent the largest of the asteroids, like Ceres, for example, though they don't have any particular resources visible on them. Here's Saturn, along with its own planetary ring. I mean, Jupiter, I'm sure... No, okay, guess not. Saturn, up there is, I believe, Titan? Yeah. And I think this is Enceladus? Yeah. Enceladus, okay. Uranus with Umbrio, and more small moons. Neptune, Triton. And then further up we have the various Kuiper Belt objects, which includes Pluto. I figure that's actually the big one down here. But yeah, this is the Kuiper Belt. Above that is the Oort cloud. Very small. And bear in mind that the further out we go, the smaller space, the more space each tile represents. These are other star systems with their own planets and whatnot. And here we have the general Orion arm with some interesting stars and whatnot. I am not entirely sure what an Earth plot is doing up here. I think that's a mistake. With the map itself. Same up there. Up here is the galaxy itself. This is the galactic core. The other aspects of the Milky Way's arms. This is the local group. With small dwarf galaxies all over. This is the supercluster, the Virgo supercluster, with more small galaxies strewn about. And this is the observable universe, with intergalactic voids, and yeah. This is where all the stuff is. With quasars near the tippy top, those are extremely energetic galaxies. And this stuff is purely speculative. Yeah. Okay. Space map tour over. I'll probably get back to it sometime again in the future, but it's gonna be a while before that happens. It's gonna have to be at least the next era, because at best I can just send probes right now in order to study what's out there. And build some wonders for a lot cheaper than they otherwise would be. That's honestly half the point. Space! These are the voyages. I think if I put my mind to it, I could probably recite that Star Trek opening quote. Maybe not perfectly. There might be a bit hiccups here and there. But dink dink. Okay. It's good enough for that city for now. Oh, up there it's to mine, isn't it? I haven't seen any barbarians lately. This leads me to believe that they've largely stopped spawning by now. Which will certainly be a good thing. So I don't remember seeing any last session, and I haven't seen any this session either. Which means that they've probably faded from importance. Yeah, I really should... Should I? Well, I definitely need to start helping the city's production development get going even further. There we go. Mars Science Laboratory. I believe that refers to the... Yeah. Curiosity. That's an interesting picture to represent it with. Let's get that resin out of the way. Bronze plat. The Clockwork Workshop is pretty cheap, so... Don't touch these. That coal power plant. Something I really should build sooner. A small reactor factory. Right, and let's get these advanced metalworks out of the way. I also need asphalt roads, and I probably need to build the shopping district, don't I? Oh. It's not technically what I want to build, but... Oh, jeez, how am I supposed to find the shopping district in this mess of buildings? I'm just going to assume it's already been built because I don't want to think about it not being built yet. I can do some legwork though and get these out of the way. Also these, okay. Karakara is gonna take a while. That's resin. These forts. The bane of my existence. Okay, route it up, move on. Although I won't get to it this session. really need to do maglev stuff here. Okay. Grow up the forest all the way and get down to business. It's a tree farm. Yeah, that time. Let's give you yet another movement point. Right, so I'm gonna send the satellite off to cislunar space. That gives me a more advanced mission reward than plain old orbit. I can use that in order to set up the GPS system. That can get me going places. Hmm. Where to next is the question. I mean, this tile's out of reach, but another source of uranium could be practical. Man, I hope that doesn't trigger any copyright issues. So, that's severely going to help with the nucleic acid collab. I mean, I don't have that many, but it's still enough of a jump in science to get me, well, that's at least 8,000 more science in total. Well, at least a few thousand. 5,000? I wasn't paying that much attention to how much it was just before, so. Okay. Geosynchronous orbit. Excellent. Now I just need to figure out a city that has built one of these things and send the mission reward over to there. That's easier said than done, isn't it? Thankfully, these satellites also have the satellite buildings happen to be cheaper than the satellite itself, so I don't have any incentive to actually build even more satellites just to fill that in. Plus, I would need to do this for every single city, too, so. Okay, I can pretty definitively conclude that I have not built this in any of my cities whatsoever. Oh, joy. I can't be bothered to wait, the GPS is too useful. Oh boy. You know what? I'll remember to build, a mine here. It's gonna be fairly obvious, or grow the forest. It's gonna be, or just build road stuff here. Yeah, I'll remember to do something useful with the tile next time. So, sent off probes to the inner planets, and I'm going to be sending some more out. At least until I run out of useful mission rewards. Miscellaneous units, okay. There's also space station mission rewards. Yeah, I can get Mir and Skylab that way. It's a reason to build more satellites. So, yeah. I mean, so far that's the only way I can interact with the space map. As technology improves, I will of course be able to do more than just that. But for now, that is all that can be done. It is a bit sad, but oh well. It's up there. It can wait. Especially since by our current technology, we have no way of getting up there. At least not to the extent that we will be able to later on in the game. Well, I will be able to later on in the game. Space can only go so far. Anyway. Oh yeah, Silicon Valley got completed at some point, and I have completely forgotten about it. But that does mean I can do stuff like the digital office. Now, if only I can figure out where that is. There it is. Yeah, with this I can build the freelance marketplace, which gets me 5 production. It's even stronger with mesh networks, but that is nanotech era, which is the one after information era. And we haven't even finished the first row of technologies, so don't worry too much about it though. But I figured out ion propulsion, so we can keep going. Yep, Dawn, New Horizons, Icarus, and these smaller ones. I'll eventually get to. Technically, I could do space tourism, which would allow me to bring the space station to level 2. The level 2 can do the Mirror and Skylab, as well as the Orbital Hotel and Space Station tours. The Orbital Hotel is a regular building. Yeah. So, probably not that often. Space Station tours are... Yeah. Well, they're less expensive, but don't in production, but don't provide as much as the space station tours. I mean, look at how much. But I don't really need money. I mean, look at my finances. I'm approaching 10 billion in my treasury. The expenses are high, but they're not that high. And some of it is from inflation, which is just because I sometimes use some of it in order to speed up a building. I mean, I know I shouldn't overdo it, which is why I don't do it all that often. I may end up doing it for some wonders, though. And for cities that really could use something. And the fact of the matter is, since I'm the only one, I don't actually need to rush wonders. Oh well. I've gone on long enough. I'll see you again next time. Until then, bye. We're back to over an hour again.